Good morning. Trying to get, let's see, trying to get up live on Facebook and Instagram at the same time. It's like tricky because my laptop needs to be a little further back and Instagram needs to be a little closer, I think. Let's see if I can put them at the same time. I'll wait a couple seconds to see if anybody jumps on. Hello, hello. So I'm live on Facebook and Instagram. I will be going over week 3 of the Frame It Quilt Along, which is cutting our pieces. If you are new to the group or new to my Instagram page, I am Andrea from Happy Cloud Creations. So wait a couple seconds to have some people jump on. Hi, Amy. So doing the both Facebook and Instagram can be difficult because the cameras are located in different spots. So I tried to put my phone on my laptop screen. Let's see if that works today. Hi, Brenda. Hi, Lisa. Hello. She plays with fabric. Hello, Deb. Debbie. Hi, Mom. My mom just joined. So today we're going over week 3 of the Frame It Quilt Pattern Quilt Along, which I just realized I forgot part of the pattern in my family room really quick. So I'm going to run and grab it really quick while you guys jump on. All right, sorry about that. I'm back. So I wanted to grab the supplementals because they have a little different cutting instructions. So, good morning, Judy. Good morning, everybody over on Instagram. Serena, Mama O. Good morning. So, good morning, Donna. So there's 3 different versions of this block right here. Can you see that? The square and square, because the main pattern uses the cut your triangles on a bias, sew it to a square method, which some people are apprehensive about doing that, sewing triangles onto a square, because when you cut a triangle on the bias, it makes the fabric a lot more stretchy. So I provided these 2 other supplementals for people that are newer or scared to use that. So we have the half square triangle method and the stitch and flip method. So once you have decided which method you want to go with, you'll look at those fabric requirements. The half square triangles is going to use more background fabric, and then the stitch and flip method will use more main fabric and background fabric. If you guys have any questions along the way, please ask. I will try to make sure to keep looking at the screens. So I guess I kind of wrote down a little list of tips. First thing, you're going to want to iron your fabric. Personally, I don't wash my fabric. One, because I'm using fat quarters. Since the fat quarter is cut already to a small size, I don't want to wash this because the ends will fray and I will have a smaller piece of fabric. And this pattern, if you use the main pattern, it uses most of that fat quarter if you see the cutting diagram. And when you get your pattern, you will see that. So it's going to use 19.5 by 17 3/4 of that fat quarter. So there's just going to be a tiny bit at the bottom and a tiny bit at the side. So I don't wash it. I do iron it. If you are a little weary about cutting the triangles on the bias, you may want to starch. I didn't starch my fabric, but a lot of people like starch, even in regular piecing. I know that a lot of people recommend the Best Press starch, and I know you can find that all over the place, online, quilt shops, Joann's. Hi, Donna. Donna again. There's a couple Donnas on here. Hi, Deb. Hi, Anita. You didn't miss me. I just jumped on. So we're going to iron our fabric, and basically, if you're going to starch it, you spray the starch on and you iron it. I didn't do that. I will just use mine regular. I didn't have a problem with it. I just sewed very slowly when I was attaching those triangles to the squares. You'll want to, what I do when I use a fat quarter, I like to find the edge that is the straightest, and you can do that by taking your ruler and lining it up with the selvage to see which side is straighter, because sometimes these fat quarters are being cut by shop owners, and it might not be by the person, like the manufacturer. Sometimes they're cut by manufacturers, sometimes they're cut by shop owners. Sometimes shop owners will give you 18 1/4 inches long instead of exactly 18, which I love when they give you a tiny bit more. It makes it a little easier. But sometimes it's right on that 18, or sometimes it's a little smaller, which isn't good. So you want to make sure to measure to make sure it is the full 18 by 22. The length, though, we're only going to be using 19 1/2 inches lengthwise. So if there's it's a little bit short this way, that's okay. Because I know a couple people were upset because their fat quarters weren't quite the right size. Amy says she likes to use lemon starch. I've never heard of lemon starch. That sounds like it would smell nice. Hi, Mary. Hi, Anita from the UK. Oh, you're on right now. I wasn't sure if you guys are sleeping over there. So I like to find the straight edge. And if it's not perfectly straight, you want to trim up that edge so that it is straight. And then I like to do my biggest pieces first. That way you get those out of the way, and you know that, say you do a bunch of the 2 1/2 inch strips, and then you mess up on a couple of them, and you cut out extra fabric, and then you get down to the bottom and you don't have a 5 1/4 inch with the fabric, and then you're like, oh no, now what do I do? So if you do the bigger pieces first and get those out of the way, it makes it a little easier. Same with yardage. I like to do the biggest pieces first. So I typically will take this fat quarter, and if you're doing the yardage too, the yardage, basically you're gonna take your yardage from the center, and you're gonna go like this and meet the selvage to selvage, and that way you can form a straight line on the edge, and you know this won't be crooked at all. It won't bow when you open it up. The lines won't bow. They'll be perfectly straight if you do that. And then I will do a 5 1/4 by length of width of fabric strip, and then I will subcut my pieces from that. I will subcut the 3 5 1/4 inch squares. This is for the main pattern. The half square triangle pattern also uses 5 1/4. I like to make my half square triangles and the main pattern a little bit bigger than needed, and then you trim down so your square and square block is perfect. The stitch and flip method actually uses a larger center square. That's why you need the more background fabric. The larger center square, and then 4 small squares, which that means you're wasting, once you sew these on, you're wasting these triangles that you're cutting off. But you could also make those into half square triangles before you actually cut them off. So another seam that's a 1/2 inch from your first seam, and then you have another spare half square triangle, which I like to do. A bunch of people are jumping on Facebook. Hi, Melanie. Hi, Jean. All right, so if there's any questions, let me know. So once I do that, I do this using the fat quarters was really easy this time because, you know, you just do the 1 5 1/4 inch strip, and then the rest you have 5 2 1/2 inch strips. And then from that, you cut them down. If your seams tend to end up a little bit bigger than a scant 1/4 inch seam, this pattern won't be that bad because that square and square, if you use the main pattern, it's going to end up being bigger than we need already. So you'll just want to make sure to trim all of those square and squares the exact same size. And then once you add those 2 1/2 inch strips around them, they're going to all stay the same size. If your seam ends up being smaller than it should be, that's when you might run into a little issue when you're attaching these strips. Say this block was the 8 1/2 inches and you trim it down to the 8 1/2. So you would attach this and you attach this, but your seams aren't quite big enough. This strip will be too small, so it'll be too short. So if you notice that your seams run a little bit on the smaller size, when you're cutting out these 6 1/2 inch long and 8 1/2 inch long strips, you may want to cut them a little bit bigger than needed. And then after you attach them, trim them down to the correct size. That way you're not trying to stretch a short strip onto your block that's a little bigger. But also, since, you know, I left this extra room in here for these points for the main fab pattern, you'll be like, whoa, that's a lot of points showing. I did that on purpose so that if you do need to trim them down, you're not going to lose your points. Nobody's going to lose their points. And then also these, you're not losing points. So you can trim things down easily at each step so that you're not losing points, and it will still look perfect. As long as you're trimming each block the same amount to the same size, they will all fit together perfectly. Hello, Susan. Could you please repeat the amount of fat quarters that is used? Didn't have my paper and pen ready. Well, Brenda, it all depends on which pattern you're using. It's in the pattern. The quilt along is going by the throw size, and so that the throw size only needs 8 fat quarters if you're using the main pattern, and also with the half square triangle pattern. If you're using the stitch and flip one, it actually needs 12 fat quarters, and that's all in here. Also, on my first blog post, I have a sheet that you can click and download that's just the fabric requirements, so that it's easy to just print out and bring to your local fabric store. If you're using the other sizes, it's going to differ. So baby would be front page. That's cutting instructions, not fat quarters. Okay, so the baby size is going to be 4 fat quarters, which is the same as if you're using yardage. The fat quarters for the throw is 8, or you can use 8 1/3 yard cuts. The twin size is 14 fat quarters, or you could use 6 2/3 yard cuts and 1 1/3 yard cut. You don't quite need 7 full 2/3. That would be, so it's not as scrappy as 14 fat quarters, you know, if you just want to use yardage instead. The queen size would be 20 fat quarters, or you could use 10 2/3 yard cuts. If you want to cut down that even further to only 5, you would do, what would that be? 2/3 plus 2/3 is 4 thirds. So 1 yard and 1/3. And then if you want to do the king size, it's 24 fat quarters, or you can do 12 2/3. Or again, you can cut that down and do 6. 1 and 1/3. I hope that answers your question, Brenda. But it's all in the pattern, so you can find that pattern at happycloudcreations.com. You can also find you can find the digital and printed version for US and Canada on my shop. I have chosen to do the worldwide. So if you live in Australia, UK, anywhere that's going to charge VAT tax, GST, Etsy actually collects that from you and they send it to the government, so I don't have to deal with that. So if you're worldwide other than United States and Canada, you can purchase that on my Etsy shop. And that is just the digital on Etsy. Anita, so, okay. You mentioned it uses 19.5. Sorry, you missed it. Oh, sorry, Brenda. Yeah, so a regular fat quarter is, it's going to be, I'll show you with the diagram. A regular fat quarter, if you can see right here, is going to be 18 inches long and 21 inches wide. But if you see, there's going to be a little bit excess when you print it out. There's a little bit excess on this side and a little bit excess on the bottom. So there's going to be this way, if you add up all these measurements, it comes to 17 3/4. If you add up the 3 6.5 inch long strips, that only comes to 19.5 inches. So if your fat quarter is actually only 20 inches wide and not 22 or 21, it'll still work if you measure first and then cut. I always hate when I cut something wrong and then it's like, oh no, I don't have enough fabric. So measuring twice is a big key. You know, measure, okay, and look at your print book. Yes, that's what I was supposed to cut. So if we are doing everything from the main pattern with the half square triangles, will the 1/4 inch blocks be big enough to trim down, or do we need to cut the 4th? No. So Anita, the half square triangles, you make them with the 5 1/4 inch squares, and then, which we'll get into that next week, you make them into the 5 1/2, and they'll be larger than needed. And then it tells you to trim them down to 4 1/2 inches. So I like to, like some people would just go with a 5 inch square, and so those, and not have any trimming at all, which I like having a little bit of trimming. That way that half square triangle is perfectly square. Hi, Benny. So I hope that makes sense to you, Anita. Hello, Shannon, you made it. So with the half square triangles, it'll be the same cutting measurements as the main pattern. It's just you're going to be using those differently. So instead of having a large square to sew together in the center, you're going to have all these half square triangles. So you're going to need a little bit more of that background fabric. And then with the stitch and flip, since you're going to be sewing 4 squares onto a large square, you're going to need more of this fabrics. So you can only get 4 squares out of a fat quarter, so that's why you do less of the strips when it comes to the stitch and flip method. So if you're wanting to save on fabric, you're better off doing the half square triangle or the main pattern. Really, I think the main pattern, everybody can do it. Don't be scared. Maybe get some scratch fabric out and just try it with some scratch fabric. That's it's an easy way to learn skills too. You might be scared of it. I don't like sewing triangles, but I'm like, I'm going to do this. This is going to save fabric, and then it's going to look nicer because you're going to have more room and you're not going to cut off your points. If you do the half square triangle method, it gives you less of that wiggle room, and you may cut off your points when you go sew those strips onto it. So I think the main pattern, try the main pattern first, just a test block in some scrap fabric, not the fabric you've chosen for the quilt along, and use that block to make a throw pillow or something for your couch. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure before I cut. Yes, that is perfect. Yeah, go by the pattern instructions. Whatever the pattern says, do, because I'm not going to tell you the wrong size on the half square triangle. So it tells you what size to cut, and I will go over the square and square block next week, all 3 methods. I'll show you how to make all 3 methods because I know some of the people in the group or that are on Instagram are like new. This might be your first quilt and you don't know much about stitch and flip or half square triangles, and you don't want to decide which one you're doing until you see all 3 methods. Where is your granddaughter, Mom? She is watching Frozen right now because I wanted it quiet in here. That's where she is. I like the main pattern. It went better than I thought it would. Oh, good, Shannon. So you tried using the main pattern. Yeah, so I know a lot of people were, I did a poll and a lot of people were worried about it, and that's why I did make the 2 supplementals. Oh, I think Snow heard her name. Are you gonna come say hi to Mimi? Yeah, she's coming. And so if you just try it, you know, you might decide you like it. Can you say hi? Yeah, she's been good. She's been really quiet this time, huh? Should go finish the movie. Don't pull on it. So I pinned this up because, you know, these weeks that I haven't been doing a quilt along, outside has been so dark and dreary and not sunny in here. And then the day I decided to do a quilt along, it is so sunny. And I thought maybe this would block some of the sun. So if there's any questions, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to go over. If you're using yardage, you would do the same. Cut your bigger pieces out first, and say you do 1 strip of 5 1/4 inch. Please don't do that. Mama. If you cut out all those pieces and you have some left over, you could cut 2 2.5 inch strips off of the remainder, because 2.5 plus 2.5 is 5, and this is going to be a 5 1/4 inch strip, so you'll have enough. Yes, baby. Okay, go have a yogurt drink or something. Okay, I'm almost done. Almost done. It helped immensely to. I missed that. It helped immensely to crease in the middle per the instructions. Yes, that helped me too. I'm like, how can we make it so that these blocks are all centered perfectly and creasing? I will go over that next week too. I cut my fat quarters for the main pattern, but I cut all the same sizes from each fat quarters and still had some left over from the 4 of each color I'm using. What size are you doing, Anita? There should be a little bit of fabric left over when you're done, if you're cutting off the correct amounts. Just a tiny bit on the sides. And this like square right here is left over. It's good. I worry about ones that are cut smaller than 18 inches long. You might have trouble with that. Hi, Snow. Shannon says hi. I love the quilt as a backdrop. Thank you, Amy. I thought then people could see what I'm actually talking about if they jump on like, huh, what is she talking about? Oh, I see. It is beautiful today. Yeah, Shannon says it's beautiful. It is so sunny. I'm so surprised. We've been having such gray, cloudy days, and then today is nice and sunny. I'm hoping that means we're going to get a warm up. So I guess if nobody has any other questions, in a little bit, okay? She wants a pickle. That's an odd snack for a 5-year-old. So I guess I will be back on here next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pretty sure. I don't think I have plans next Tuesday. To go over the square and square block, and I'll go over each method that we have so that you can see, okay, which method you want to do. So I'll do the stitch and flip, the half square triangle, and the main pattern. And I guess that's it. I will post this video. It'll be up for 24 hours on Instagram, and I will save it to the Facebook group, and then I will download it on my YouTube channel. So if people on Instagram don't see it right away, it'll be there for you later. So you guys have a great day, and I will see you next Tuesday. Goodbye, goodbye.